Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome, everybody, to the Hockey Think Tank podcast, brought to you by the Hockey Think Tank community, a place where all passionate hockey players, parents, and coaches can go to get a little bit of education and a little bit of inspiration regarding the greatest game on the planet. What an episode we have for you guys here today. We're now calling him the human quote machine after all the amazing perspective that he gave us on this podcast. But we're bringing in Ryan Carter, who works from the Minnesota Wild department. He's on the broadcasts. He's given his perspective on the game. Just a great hockey guy. His background: grew up in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, and played his college hockey at University of Minnesota Mankato. Then he went on to play in the NHL. Man, what an NHL career, over 470 games, won a Stanley Cup with the Anaheim Ducks. And like I said, now he's working in Minnesota Wild in their TV department. And God, this was such a great conversation, guys. And before we do get over to Ryan, though, let's bring on the talent of the podcast. One, Jeffrey J. Hulavecchio. Vex, what's going on today, my man?
Not much, bro. Just having a great week. Got to meet with one of my buddies who's entrepreneur and does a lot of stuff, just crushing it in life in all different ways this morning. And it just brought me back to, the things that you and I always talk about. One of Toph's biggest things that he does in his speeches with teams and organizations and team building is, you are the sum of the 5 people you hang around the most. So for me, it was just a good morning. Like me being, small business owner, wearing a lot of hats. Like I'm running around all day, every day, doing a lot of different things, and it was nice to kind of take a couple hours out of my day here, meet with my buddy. And we just talked about our businesses and, different ideas and just things like that. And it just brought me back to thinking about what we always talk about, like really matters who you spend your time with, and reinvigorated me and re-energized me and just excited me for the rest of the day with all the things I have to do for the biz and stuff like that. So it's been a fun morning. And then having this podcast, we're doing this intro right after we recorded, and what a freaking guy. I mean, human highlight reel of quotes here. Like this is one of my favorite podcasts we've done in a while. Like you guys are going to love this podcast.
Yeah, totally. Really, really good guy. And it's really funny because I didn't know him kind of going in, and just know him from playing against him in junior hockey. And he was in Green Bay, I was in Chicago, played against each other on the ice a lot, our lines against each other. And he was so hard to play against. Like he's one of those guys that was like, you hate him when you're on the other team, but you love him when he's on your team. Right. And man, just the career that he's had, and God, the perspective, like you talk about the people that you surround yourself with. If you stick around to the end of this podcast, the last question we ask him is about like kind of his feelings about winning a Stanley Cup. And the answer legit like made me emotional. It was it was so incredibly cool. Just quotes for days to make us all better in this one.
Yeah. I mean, all I kept thinking, and I think I said it when we were on the air towards the end of the podcast, I was like, no wonder you played so long in the NHL. I mean, this guy's mindset's absolutely dialed. You're a young player and you want to keep moving up in hockey. I don't care what level to what level. Like this is a podcast you're going to want to listen to.
100%. Do want to send a huge congratulations to Team USA Women's Hockey. And at the time that this podcast recording is, we don't know who the winner of the men's is going to be yet. So we'll get to that next time. But man, just so pumped. It was really cool. I mean, one of the cool things about being able to do our podcast is getting the opportunity to talk to so many great people like Ryan. But we might have a record here. We have interviewed the last 2 women's hockey MVPs of the Olympics. And Caroline Harvey, who just won the MVP. I mean, she's a college senior at the University of Wisconsin right now and was the best player in the Olympics. Just absolutely incredible watching her play. We got to interview her, what was probably 2-3 months ago. Phenomenal conversation with her. And then the last MVP of the last Olympics, in 2022 is Brianne Jenner of Team Canada. And so we got to interview her about a year or so ago. So we have on the podcast the last 2 MVPs of the Olympics, which is really, really cool. Also want to send a shout out to Kendall Coyne Schofield. Kendall was literally our first ever interview that we did 7 whatever years ago. And to watch her, and what a cool story, you know, bringing her son to the games and getting the chance to play in front of her son and to watch her win a gold medal and be in the leadership position, thinking about that conversation we had so many years ago where, you know, the women were fighting for equity in the game and trying to find a professional league that was sustainable. And man, just like really cool. So proud of them, and really, really cool to see the USA pull it off there. And just an unbelievable game. Hillary Knight scores to tie it with a minute left to break the Olympic scoring record, you know, and then Megan Keller scoring that nasty goal to win it in overtime. Man, just congrats to the women there from Team USA.
Those pictures and videos too, like it was like very Bobby Orr-esque, like the move. And you know, you see the pictures of the Canadian girl who got dangled and she's on the ice sliding with her head down, and we're USA's celebrating, and like the pictures are just, I mean, they're heartbreaking for Canada and unbelievable for the US teams. Pretty cinematic.
Yeah, for sure. So just awesome hockey. I think there's going to be a lot more women, a lot more girls that are going to choose to play hockey from this rivalry that's been created between USA and Canada, and being able to watch that game and just how incredible it was. It's going to help to grow the game. So very, very cool. Congrats to the women there from Team USA. Hey man, like let's get over to Ryan. This was a phenomenal conversation, but before we do get over to him, we do have some people to thank here. First and foremost, want to thank our title sponsor, icehockeysystems.com, the best website out there for all your coaching education needs, and not just coaching education needs now, because they have family accounts for all of you players and parents out there. Just unbelievable content to help you understand the game as a parent, unbelievable content on there to make you a better player for the players too. So not only do they have thousands of drills and whiteboard explanations for the coaches, the ability to go in and draw your drills up and send them out to your teams beforehand and create a drill library for your entire youth organization with their associations platforms. But this is not just for coaches anymore. It is for the players and the parents too. So go to icehockeysystems.com today and check it out. Vex?
Want to give a massive thank you to Train Heroic. Guys, this off season is going to be unbelievable. Whether you're a team or organization or an individual and you want to have the best off season you've ever had in your life, I have some really, really cool things that are going to be releasing here. Some add-ons that, you know, we could have. If you want, you can have my Give More Advising video coach, retired pro hockey player Mike Hunterbrinker, reviewing your games over the summer, giving you individual shift by shift breakdowns. We're going to have a nutrition coach, video calls with me. My goal is to really help as many players as we possibly can. Last year, we had hundreds of players do the online training. And this year, we're also adding the 13 and under at-home off-season training too, all provided onto Train Heroic platform. So a massive thank you to Train Heroic. If you have questions, just reach out to my socials.
Boom. There we go. Also want to thank Helios Hockey, the best product for player development on the market right now. It is a sensor that you put into your shoulder pads that gives you real-time data, real-time feedback on your play. One of their ambassadors is Caroline Harvey, the new Olympic MVP, along with Matthew Nyes playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But, you know, this is great. The kids absolutely love it because one of the things they track is a hustle score. When you move, that sensor moves, and it gives you some real cool, fun data to use. It's great little competition between the players. We actually have an Olympic little competition going on right now between the US and Canada based on everybody's hustle scores and where you're from, which is really, really fun. But also the kicker for this is it pairs up with your video. And we say this every week, but it pairs up with your video no matter what the video is. Could be Live Barn, could be an iPad, could be an iPhone, whatever it may be. And you get your shifts of your games or your reps and practice cut up for you directly after the session that you have. So just an unbelievable value add. Go to helioshockey.com and use the coupon code ThinkTank, one word, and you will get a 20% discount on your Pro Annual or Pro 24-month subscription. And we also want to thank Crossbar. Crossbar is a software solution that gives you the opportunity to really streamline the operations of your youth hockey club. And so what are the features that it has? It's just really, really easy to use website design, both on the front end and on the back end. It has a 5-star communication app, the ability to go in and schedule from big things like your practice schedules and everything like that to little things like drop-ins and clinics. Man, like this is just a one-stop shop, financial tools, facility management, like to help you to streamline and run your youth hockey organization. So go to crossbar.org today and check that out. And lastly, just want to thank everybody who continues to listen to the podcast. We love you guys, and continue to grind this thing out every week. And we have the ability to bring on unbelievable guests like Ryan here because we continue to get your support. And if you would like to help us grow and get into more cars and more ears, one of the things that you can do for us is just interact with our podcast on your podcast app by commenting, shooting us ratings or reviews, downloading, following, all that kind of stuff goes a long way to the algorithm of spreading the hockey think tank gospel, trying to make the hockey world a little bit better every day at a time. And so if you could do that for us, that would be great. And guys, one of our favorite podcast conversations that we've had in the 7 years doing this, you guys are going to absolutely love it. So here we go with NHL veteran, Stanley Cup champion, now working with the Minnesota Wild. Here we go with Ryan Carter. We are so excited to have on this episode of the podcast. He's up in what we love, beautiful Minnesota. We got Ryan Carter. Ryan, how are we doing today, man?
Well, I'm doing well. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Exciting time in hockey right now, and specifically in Minnesota. I mean, I don't know if you guys follow the Wild, but it was a big acquisition getting Quinn Hughes. So there's been quite an excitement in terms of the professional level here with the Wild. Now they've got a couple of guys playing in the Olympics, and that's currently going on. So lots of exciting hockey going on here in Minnesota.
Oh, absolutely. You got the state tournament coming up here pretty soon too. And I'm actually going to be up in Minnesota in a couple weeks to do a little bit of a talk with one of the sections, just during their little like celebration before their final couple games or whatever it may be to get to the state tournament. So how incredible. So you grew up in White Bear Lake. I got to ask you first of all, like we always like to ask our guests how they fell. And then we'd love to ask you, especially this time of year, like how exciting it is that the high school hockey tournament's coming. But first of all, how'd you fall in love with this great game?
So it's an interesting story. At least I think it's interesting, but nobody in my family's ever played. And I always tell everybody that I'm more a product of my environment than anything else, because my dad doesn't know how to skate. My mother never played hockey. My grandparents didn't, uncles didn't. Nobody in my family has played hockey. And, but they picked a house in White Bear Lake, and on the back side of that house was a cul-de-sac. So all the backyards met up together. And with that, one of the neighbors played hockey at the University of Minnesota. His name's Robin Larson. And he had a couple of boys about my age. And at this time I was 3 or 4 years old, kind of. And they're out there learning to skate. And I'm fogging up the window, telling my mom and dad, like, hey, I want to go out there. They're like, you can't. You don't play hockey. We don't know what to get you. So eventually I bug them enough to where they go get me gear. And to illustrate, my dad hates this story, to illustrate how little he knows or knew about the game of hockey is I threw a ball right-handed. So he thought I was right-handed. So he goes to the store, gets me some skates, gets me a stick. It's right-handed. I keep flipping it the other way around. He keeps giving me a hard time. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You look like a meathead. And I was like, I don't know. This is just how I play hockey. But so where did I fall in love with the game of hockey? Out there. And it was just an organic, probably fall in love, because I was introduced to it by the neighbors, by snow falling, by looking out the window, by seeing it and wanting it and going and trying it, then enjoying it and wanting more and more. And then, as you guys probably know, the outdoor rink is a pretty good measuring stick too, because there are some older brothers, and eventually you get to a spot where you're like, hey, I kind of want to beat that older brother. He's 2 years older. We got to see that. So there's always a challenge out there, and fell in love with that part of it too. But I was in the rink right in the backyard. I don't play hockey. I'm not here talking to you guys today if my parents don't pick that house. So I always say that I'm more a product of my environment than anything else. So just very lucky, very lucky.
A little bit of Slapshot Regatta with the boys, with the family. What movie is that? What is that, Toph? She's
out of my league.
Yeah.
Slapshot Regatta. That's so funny. So you obviously got the bug, getting the chance to watch that and getting into it. And, we love to have people from Minnesota on the podcast, just because a lot of people in Minnesota, a lot of times are in a bubble and they don't realize what's going on youth hockey wise all the way around the country. And then a lot of people all outside of Minnesota don't know how great the hockey environment is there. Talk a little bit about growing up in White Bear Lake and then eventually getting to the high school and playing for the high school program. Like, how cool was that to be able to play for your town? And how do you think it aided and helped in your development to eventually play in the NHL one day?
Yeah. And forgive me if some of the listeners kind of know the Minnesota model, but I'll start at the beginning. The way it works here is you have a school district, more or less, where all the kids that go to your school play in your hockey district. And so you don't have an option to play for the other town's team or the other town's team. So you're kind of set kind of on a hockey path until you get to high school. And when we were growing up, there's different options now where you can play like maybe year-round AAA. Those are limited here in Minnesota. But so you played with your buddies. You'd go to school with them. You'd go to elementary school with them. Middle school. You'd get out of school at the same time. You'd hit the outdoor rink, and you kind of played with the same group your whole life. And growing up in Minnesota, that's just the way that it was. And the goal was, hey, I really just want to play high school hockey, because at that time, and it still seems that way, the state high school hockey tournament is maybe one of the best amateur sport events for hockey. I think about, you got the brick tournament, which I hear about, which is fun for the squirts and the little guys. But once you get to 18 years old, like, how often are you selling out 18,000 seat buildings for a high school game when you're 16 years old? Like, it's unbelievable. So when I was young, you're watching that. That's all you want, is to be a part of that. And yeah, you'd give just about anything to do it. And with that, I think there was such high competition to be a good player that you put in the work, and you're looking at the guy next to you. You're like, I got to outwork that guy, because if we make it to the state tournament, I want to play. And so it was, yeah. And at that time too, it was patient. Like, no agents. It wasn't really like that. So I'm 16, 17 years old. You're playing high school hockey, having the time of your life with your buddies who are your lifelong best friends, trying to win a state title in front of 18,000. And for me, really naive, didn't know what junior hockey was, didn't know what, major junior was. It was all just high school hockey. And then I watched the Gophers, and I wanted to be a Gopher. And that was really it for me, kind of growing up. And kind of a fun path. I think it's changed now, but really enjoyed that.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, it's there's nothing like the Minnesota high school state tournament. It's incredible. And, you talk about, having that youth experience, and you didn't know much about junior hockey and wanted to play for the Gophers, but you end up going to Green Bay, and we actually played against each other for a couple of years. You and I probably took, 1,000 faceoffs against each other, with me playing in Chicago and you in Green Bay, the closest team to us. And I'd love to ask you about this, because I think it's an undervalued trait and characteristics in a lot of players nowadays. But like, you were really hard to play against. Like, that's the one thing I remember, is you were really, really hard to play against. You can get under my skin pretty easily. You're just strong like a bull, almost like that farm strength. I remember like taking draws against you and down in the corners and stuff like that. And like, that was the role that you had there, and then you go and you play in the NHL, playing a similar role like that. But like, how can you teach kids nowadays to play against? Because rightfully so, we teach a lot of skill, right? Like, kids got to be skilled if they want to get to the next levels and things like that. They got to have the hockey sense, but just the ability to be hard to play against. What does that mean to you? And how do you think we can help develop kids to have that characteristic in them?
Yeah, really a good question. I think it does probably come down to coaching. And I am an advocate of USA Hockey and the models and how they've kind of trained coaches a little bit to be knowledgeable in the sport and develop skills and give coaches assets or information to learn how to develop skills, because not everybody has played junior hockey or college hockey that wants to coach their kids. So USA Hockey, I think, is good for that. But with that, I think coaches at times kind of get caught up with developing skills. And now what we see with players is we have a bunch of highly skilled players and they're focused on skills. But for me specifically, I look at the coaches that I had. One was Bill Butters. If you go YouTube Bill Butters, he was beating the snot out of everybody. That's when I was in high school. That's who coached. And then I go to Green Bay and I have Marco Sicchi as my coach. I'll tell a quick story. He showed us how he wanted us to play, and he showed us a highlight video of him while he was playing in the NHL. And it was a montage of cross checks, right? So we were like, okay, I get it. We're gonna play hard. And now, actually, if you look at the statistics of that Green Bay team, nobody was jumping off the page in terms of goals, assists, points per game. We had some skill, but we played hard, and that was just kind of the personality of the coaches. And now it makes sense why Marco Sicchi wanted me to play for Green Bay, because Bill Butters got me to play a certain way in high school. And it's like, I think Osicki liked that kind of player. So, but with that, and I think to answer your question is, there's a lot of focus on skill right now, and the game is getting faster, and you need to be able to skate. You've got to have the skills to be able to handle the puck and play with your head up. But I do think that right now, and if you look at the USA models, there's compete drills, but there's not like, hey, I'm going to get you compete. Like we would fight, Junior, we would fight in practice. Like it was a weekly thing. It was almost an expectation that Jake Taylor and I were going to have to go toe to toe in practice. And if it came down to it, neither one of us had the ability to back down, because we wanted to be there. We wanted to prove something to our coach, and we just naturally became hard to play against in practice. I think that came from coaching. And now I got 3 daughters. I coach them, and we have we'll do wrestling drills on the ice. We'll do shove this person out of the circle. Like, you're going to compete. You're going to be hard. And they're not good at it at first, but by the end of the year, we start to see a competitive advantage in the girls in the level of compete. And I love, now this is the girls' side of the game, but I love the PWHL is starting to let some more physicality into the game too, because the young girls are seeing it and they're like, it is okay to bump a little bit. It is okay to shove that guy on the face off. It's okay to say something to scare him a little bit. And but I think a lot of it just came down to coaching and the guys that I came through, but also maybe just a willingness and a desire to play that way and a high level to compete.
I love that you said that about having them push each other and things like that, like actually physically. I think that young players need that. And coaches, like if you I remember when I was going into Pee-wees, like I was nervous when we started checking. Like, never been hit before. I was like a goal scorer when I was a little kid. All of a sudden we're getting to hitting. I haven't hit puberty yet. I don't have any armpit hair, going on. And like, I look back to those times, and what I do with my young players now is, we hit a punching bag so they get used to being physical. We do like hand to hand where we're trying to own your opponent's sleeves, like with young players. I do with NHL players too. Like, bring in a jiu-jitsu coach to teach them hand fighting. I think that gives young players confidence when they get into physical battles. But it also kind of teaches you how to protect yourself. Like, it's okay to be, a little bit violent, because if you're going to check somebody on the ice going 20 miles an hour, like it's very physical. Like, you can prepare the body for that. And I think that more coaches need to do like wrestling off the ice and stuff like that to help their players have confidence once you get into checking and stuff like that in hockey.
And I'm with you. I do think that there's a difference in violence and physicality. Not every player needs to play with violence.
100%.
Some of us did, but everybody has to play with physicality. Like, you think about, and this is old school mentality, face-offs are important. Why? If you don't win it, you spend the first 15 seconds of your 40-second shift chasing the puck. So now you only get 25 seconds to play with it. Think about the game. I think about the game like this sometimes. The majority of it's played near the wall. So if you can't win your wall battle, or you're not going to be heavier on your stick or pull the puck out of the corner or be that person, now you're chasing it for 15 seconds. It's just as important as a faceoff. So it's a skill to be able to go into a wall battle and pull the puck out. That's a skill, but I don't think people teach that skill as much. And it's a physical skill, but it's just as important as the toe drag, and it might lead to more possession time and more offense than the toe drag, right? So I just think that the physical stuff is important, and sometimes it gets tossed aside, and maybe we need to come up with a new word for it that isn't physical, because I think some people think physical hockey, that means elbows up, shoulder through the wall. No, that's not it necessarily, right? It's being strong on your stick so nobody ever lifts it. So when somebody comes by with a light little stick check, it doesn't phase you. Like, you're strong. Like, you can win a net front battle. You can do all these different physical acts on the ice that lead to possession and offense.
Very true. Very, very true. Love that. With that, you talked about like some of the coaches that you played for that have helped to instill that in you. And one of them, I believe, was an assistant coach when you were in Green Bay, and that's Luke Strand. And Luke is the head coach of your alma mater now at Mankato, and he's had success in a lot of different spots that he's had, and he certainly brings that mentality to the game. But he's a widely respected coach in college hockey. Talk a little bit about Luke when you had him in Green Bay, and then now that he's the coach of Mankato, and had some pretty big freaking shoes to fill with Hastings leaving, going to just how small the hockey world is too. Vex played for Hastings when we were all in the USHL playing against each other, which is just kind of funny. But talk about Luke Strand and the job that you think he's done so far, knowing him as well as you have.
Yeah, I think Luke was relatively. It was early in his coaching career when he had me in Green Bay, and as an assistant, that role's I think very different than a head role. So he was the good guy. He was the guy. Oz would tell me like you didn't hit that guy hard enough, and Strand would be like, I think you hit him hard enough, but you just got to be a little better. Maybe get there a little faster. Like the good guy.
Yeah.
And it was fun, great relationship, great guy, but you could see he understood the game. And he I think has this Kevin Constantine. He comes from that tree a little bit, which is kind of structured. It's fast hockey. We're going to play fast by knowing where each other are and move the puck. And I thought, at times maybe that is because the game's evolved a little bit, that style of play or that style of coaching would be an Achilles heel. It's not. I think he's applied that philosophy to the culture side of the game. And then at Minnesota State, what he's created is a great culture. And you've talked about the fact that big shoes to fill with Mike Hastings. I love how Luke Strand has now recruited in his own way. Hastings and his group went for the Western Canada guy that kind of was looked over, maybe didn't have a lot of options. He's going to be 20 years old. We're going to get him for 4 years. We're going to develop a culture, and we're going to be able to beat the Gophers, who have an 18 and 19-year-old player, because we are just physically stronger, more mature, faster, and maybe a little bit more disciplined. Maybe they've got some more high-end skill, but these other aspects of our program, this was Hastings' way, was going to yield the results that they want, which is berths to national titles and chances to win Frozen Fours. And it worked for them, and Hastings had a great run. But now the question was, okay, things are changing. Luke Strand, how are you going to do this? There's NIL money. Minnesota State is not Minnesota. It is not Michigan. How are you going to do it? And is he going to be able to maintain this recruiting pattern to get the older player? And he's changed. He says, you know what? We're going to shoot our shot a little bit. And he'll go get high-end players. He's got young players that are committed, that are skilled. And he still has developed a culture. And you guys know it too. It's different. When you're 18 years old and you're playing with a 24-year-old, it seems like you're close in age, but it's different, And you get to a college campus, I think that Luke Strand, he's illustrated. He knows a lot about the game of hockey and X's and O's. And head coaching is about motivating and culture and getting people in places to have success. And Luke Strand has done that. He continues to do that. And tip my cap to him, because the program continues to have success. And he's a huge reason why.
Yeah, for sure. And I have to imagine a lot of the qualities that you have, that you talked about, were able, that you learned, playing in high school for Butters, and then playing for Luke and Oz in Green Bay, and then getting to Mankato, and then eventually the NHL. Those were things that translated. And one of the things that we like to talk about, Ryan, on our podcast, especially for the young kids that are listening, is how important it is to develop the ability to be a versatile player and be somebody that can play up and down a lineup and not just focus on your skill. If you're just focused on your skill and you can only play a skill game or only play on the top two lines, your shelf life is going to be pretty small. And you, I imagine, were somebody that maybe your first year you got somewhere, you might have been on the third or the fourth line, and then you got up to the first line, and then you get to the next place that's better, and then now you're back again and you're playing a third or fourth line role, and then you get to the next place, and then you work your way up to a first or second line role. So you're kind of up. I see you as somebody who's played up and down the lineup in a lot of different spots that you had, and then eventually when you get to the NHL, you're part of a Stanley Cup winning team and you play over 400 games in the NHL and in a tougher role. Can you talk a little bit about how important it is for you to develop not just the skill and the sense and the compete and type stuff, but really the ability to play up and down a lineup, to play different roles, and how that helped you to get to different spots in your career?
Yeah. I wish I knew now or then what I know now, like coaching too, is that you feel as a young player that when a coach puts you like on a, let's just call it like a checking role or a diminished role, that you feel as though that's a punishment or an indictment against your skills, that you're not good enough. And now that I coach, I'll do that to players that are skilled, just to see if they have the resolve, to see if they have the ability to bounce back and be coached, to see if they're a teammate. And I didn't know this at the time, but a lot of those placements are tests to see what you are. And as a player, I think you have a choice on how you react to that. It is a skill to be coachable. And I'm learning that every day I coach now. Some kids are coachable, some kids are not. So if a coach says, I need to put you on the third line, I need you to check, I need you to be physical. Are you coachable? That's a skill. Can you adapt to that? Can you be a smart player and understand what that means to help your team win? Because if you do that and you do it well, there's going to be a time where somebody above you in the lineup is hurt or ill or something, and you're going to get the opportunity. Why? Because you're coachable. And because you did the things that your coach wanted you to do, and he will or she will reward you for that. And I think that's probably what gets lost on that. And how do you go up and down the lineup? You do what your coach wants you to do, and you do it with pride, and you understand that it's not an indictment or an endorsement to somebody else. It's just your path, your way. And if you can be the best that you can be at any given thing that you're tasked with at that time, it will make you a better player. And all of a sudden you're in a top six role, and now you can check and play offense with a little bit more freedom, better than you can. Now all of a sudden you're like a dynamic 200-foot player, and you're like, I never would have been that way if I didn't check my first year in junior hockey or something, So it's a skill to be coachable, and that's what I was saying that. Maybe I had some skills listening to those coaches on what they wanted me to do, and I was able to play up and down.
So good. So true. So let me ask you this, because you started off that by saying, I wish I knew then what I know now. And you also said that you're coaching. When you're coaching, maybe at the level you don't need to, but are you giving that type of messaging to players? Because I was in similar roles. Like in the American League, I played on the first line for a very little bit, but I played on the second line a lot. I played on the third line a lot. I played on the fourth line mostly, right? But I could play up and down, or at least they thought I could. And I had those same feelings. Oh, me getting bumped down, like they're not happy with how I'm playing, or they're liking that guy more. And the messaging coming from the top was like, we want you to be like a Byron Bitts. Like, we want you to be the fourth line guy. But like looking back in my career, all those times, I feel like if coaches would have come to me right away, and it's obviously part of this in pro, like you should learn this. But when you're a kid, you're thinking these things like you're talking about, oh, they put me down to the fourth line. Like, coach doesn't like me. I'm not going to be anything other than a fourth liner. Whereas if coach would have just said to me, hey, this is the type of player you are. You're going to be on the fourth line today. I want you to this is the things we want out of you in this role. If you do well, exactly what you said, you could get bumped up to the second line. Somebody goes down anytime. I wish if coaches would have kind of had that conversation with me, I feel like I would have been able to accept that fourth line role my first year in juniors, when it would happen in the American League. And I feel like I would have understood what they were trying to do with me and what they were wanting out of me. But instead it was like no talking between management and the players and the coaches. It's like, you just figure it out. You have to guess. When we were younger, I feel like it was a lot of that. Whereas now, are you as a coach being like having these conversations to get players to buy into themselves sooner so that they can have these things like you're talking about here?
Totally. Communication, I think, has become more a part of coaching than it ever has been before. And
right.
When we were coming through, you had to be able to read the coach's mind through body language and through different things that he was doing or she was doing. And now it's probably best illustrated by this. Players used to be motivated by a kick in the ass. Now it's a pat on the back, right? Now they need to hear something different. It's positive reinforcement, and things have changed. And to answer the question, yes, I communicate with the kids. We'll have sit-down meetings where I'll bring a parent in and the kid. And I actually ask the kid, this is the number one question I ask when I do this, is what do you want? Because I make them have to say it. Because once they say it, then now they own what they want. Because it's like, you tell me what you want. You're not happy with your role? I tell you what, I'm not a bad guy. You tell me what you want, and I'll tell you how to get it. But if you're not willing to do that, I don't know that you can get it. And then they understand. But once I give them some ownership, and once they verbally say it, it becomes real to the world, to their parent, to them, to everybody. And then it's like, okay, now the communication has been had. Now the ball is in your court. I'll give it to you. I'll give you what you want if you earn it. Let's go earn it. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. That's being coachable. That's persevering. It's different things. But I've tried to learn the best ways to be able to communicate with the kids, because you're right. I think nowadays, Jeff, you probably had more resolve, and not throwing shade on the young hockey players of today, but mental resolve than they do when it comes to dealing with adversity and tough messages. So trying to prepare a kid for those and teaching them how to kind of battle through some of these tougher situations nowadays is even more important than it probably was when we came through.
100%. I think you and Vex just became best friends.
Dude, I
more activities in your bedroom.
Dude, literally what I talk about with coaches all the time, because I have a pretty big training company here in St. Louis. We train thousands of athletes, and I train a bunch of high level all the way to little kids. And the thing that I've personally found the best to get them to buy into themselves to do whatever they need to do is ask them what are their goals, and then like honestly, like what do you want? And then when they're not meeting that standard, practice, workout, nutrition, sleep, don't care what it is, I will literally bring up to them, hey, do you remember when you told me this is what you wanted? All I have to say is, do you think today, right now, the standard you're setting today, is that getting you to what you said you wanted? And immediately, like every player automatically buys back in, like gives more to themselves, whatever it is they're doing that day. Doesn't mean they stay on that path, but just like in the short term, to get kids to show up, they're not having a great practice, something like that. I know what their goals are, and then I can go over to them and say, hey, is this blank material? Is it whatever you're putting out? Are you being a USHL player right now? I've personally found that's been the quickest way to get them to buy back into themselves. So I just love that you said that. That's really cool.
Yeah, coaching, I feel like it can be misinterpreted as a one-way street. Coach has the answers, player learns from coach or listens to coach. And I don't think it's that way if coaching's at its best. It's a two-way street. There's open communication, and if you want something, I need to know what you want as a coach to be able to give it to you or help you get it. So you got to tell me that, and once I know, now I can work with you on what you want, what makes you happy. Because the other truth is, we're at our best. You guys both played high level hockey too. You're at your best when you feel a part of something, you feel valued, and you produce. And what production looks like might mean something different. It could be a block shot, could be a goal, could be good defense, could be something. But when you feel a part of it and you produce, then you feel valued. And that's where confidence comes from. And you start to get that between your whole team. Now all of a sudden you got a team, and now you're going places together as a group. And that's what's most important.
Dude, I love that so much. It's so true. It's so true, man. It's funny. because I've been doing a lot of parent education talks over the past month or so, and one of the things that I really try to help them to understand, especially at this time of year, and it's a little different in Minnesota with your regions, and you kind of play for your school and stuff, but everywhere else, you kind of pick and choose where you play. Grass is always greener on the other side, and everybody's always worried about at this time of year, what am I doing next year, instead of being in the moment and present and okay, let's finish this year off strong. And what you said there, I think, is something that I'm really trying to emphasize right now. And it's for development, because at the end of the day, like, if you want to make the higher levels of hockey, you have to develop. You have to get better. You have to get better. And I am a huge believer that a big part of development is learning how to play for the front of the jersey, learning how to play for something bigger than yourself. That is development. That's the development of life skills. That's the development of hockey skills, because you're learning to be a versatile player, because you care about things that don't show up on the score sheet that helps you win championships, and what recruiters and scouts are looking for at the end of the day, outside of the skill that you have and the speed and everything like that. And so I really think that that's a big part of the reason why the Minnesota hockey model works, and it's the best model for development. I think a big part of that is because people in Minnesota understand the value of playing for something bigger than yourself. You're playing for your buddies. You're playing for your parents. You're playing for the alumni. You're playing for your town, where in the AAA model, and I'm a product of the AAA model, and I think there's a lot of really good things on it, but what it's become nowadays is it's so individualistic and so tailored on what can you do for me lately, and so tailored on the name on the back of the jersey instead of the front, that those kids aren't developing the skills that are necessary to be able to play at the highest levels of the game from a team standpoint. And so I don't know what your thoughts are on that, specifically being a Minnesota guy, but it is development to learn how to play a team game. It is development to learn how to have a passion for something bigger than your own journey. And I think you become a better hockey player by going through that.
Yeah, I agree. Usually you don't get the opportunity to be the BMOC, the big man on campus, until you're in college, maybe, right? Unless you play a different high school sport or whatever it might be where you went to school. But like Minnesota, if you're playing on the high school hockey team, it's the biggest sport. You're the big man on campus, right? So you are playing for the school. You are like the student section is there for you guys, and so you're right. You're playing for more than just yourself, and I think that is selfless. Now, on the Minnesota model, this is intriguing. I've done a Barstool deep dive in this, meaning that I sat at the Barstool, talked to my buddies about it. I have a theory, like Minnesota. Now, it's intriguing. I'll ask you guys this, because I'll proposition it this way. Who's the best player you guys know from Minnesota? And you can go back 20 years. It doesn't matter. I'll give you
Blake Wheeler.
Yeah.
Blake Wheeler, Zach Parise.
TJ.
Yeah, that's right. And those guys are great players, right? I don't mean to take anything away from them, but is that Austin Matthews? Is that Jack Eichel? Is that Mike Modano? So somehow over the last, probably since Phil Housley, because Phil Housley's probably the best that's ever come out of here, if you ask me. Minnesota, no other state has produced more NHL players, more NHL caliber, good, solid players than Minnesota. But what Minnesota doesn't produce is your number one overall draft pick. So whatever that is, I think the AAA model helps produce higher end talent, but you're at the very top of that pyramid. The very last rock you place produces those types of players. How does Austin Matthews out of Arizona become a number one overall pick? How do these kids from different parts of the United States become your top tier picks from non-traditional hockey markets? They probably just have access to the rinks, and they're traveling, they're chasing it, they have good competition, and they're leveling up all the time. That's the grind. But Minnesota does it different, and they have such a wide base and a deep swath of good quality players. So it's not maybe fair to say that the Minnesota model puts a ceiling on players, but it gets you NHL ready, or like professional hockey ready, more than maybe any other model. Minnesota produces the most players and great quality players, but maybe just not as much super high end, because the math doesn't add up. How does Minnesota over the years produce the highest volume of players, but none of like your first ballot HOF players. It's interesting, and I think it has something to do with the Minnesota model. But
yeah, and it's true. And one of the things I really respect about Minnesota is that they're always changing with the times. And so what Minnesota high school looked like for you back in the day is a little bit different than what it is now, because now there is a tier 1 fall league. Now there is more spring hockey and things like that, where those kids from Minnesota can have their community, type stuff during the season. But they've also added structurally a tier 1 program, the Minnesota High School Elite League. And you look at the big one that everybody talked about last year was the team from Minnesota that beat Ryan Kessler's team in the national championship. And so that, now that they have some of those options, because it's funny, like when people think Minnesota, they think like house league outside of Minnesota. Like, you play for your town and it's not that competitive, but in reality, there's a great mix of the community model where you're playing for your town, supplemented with tier 1 hockey in the fall, supplemented with spring programs and summer programs for high performance stuff. And so I think they're changing with the times, and you might be able to see that a little bit more now. But I have had this discussion with a lot of people, and you're right. Like the volume of NHL players is incredible in Minnesota, but I think Eric Johnson's the last number 1 pick from way back in the day, and he's an 87 birthday. And now we're 2008 birthdays next year in the NHL draft. So makes sense.
I think you're absolutely right. And now we'll go to the next one, burnout. I think the Minnesota model helps prevent burnout, because you're driving 10 minutes to your local rink. You're not, and I love these stories of parents that have to sacrifice and go 2 hours each way to get their kid to hockey. And when the kid makes it, it's worth it. I love those stories. That's great. But it helps prevent burnout in athletes when they can just go to the rink and play for the community. They play with their buddies. They're not moving away from home at 12, 14, 16 years old. They have good quality hockey here. But Topher, it is important, I think, that Minnesota has adjusted and put in place these elite leagues. So now you do shrink the talent pool a little bit. Now the games are a little bit faster, a little bit more competitive. We see what happens when the NHL, great league, goes to 4 nations. When it goes to the Olympics, the pace of the game increases. And exposing the kids at a younger age to some of these higher level hockeys is great. But I love that Minnesota does it kind of with a shorter period of time. Let's go play a couple weeks together. We're not going to chase this all year round and maybe burn families and players out under all this pressure.
Yeah, it's a great point, man. Great point.
The secret is out. With millions of younger-looking customers across the country, Plexiderm is one of the most highly sought-after products on the market. It visibly shrinks under-eye bags and smooths out crow's feet in minutes, and the effects last up to 10 hours. Influencers love it, magazines feature it, and people just can't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, Elle Magazine gave it an Editor's Choice Award as Best Instant Wrinkle Filler for 2025. In as little as 10 minutes, Plexiderm reduces the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and those dreaded under-eye bags. So yes, you can look years younger in minutes, and the effects last for hours. No surgery, no gimmicks, just results. The best news, you can try Plexiderm for only $14.95. Plus, get free shipping. Don't wait. Order Plexiderm today. Visit plexiderm.com/special. That's plexiderm.com/special. Paid for by Sheer Science.
Well, just for time's sake, I want to move on a little bit here, even though this is unbelievable discussion, because you had a great NHL career. You won a Stanley Cup with the Anaheim Ducks in 2007. And I'm wondering, like, I'm just so passionate about learning about what it takes to win as a team and team building and culture and things like that. And we actually had Chris Pronger on our podcast not too long ago, got to have the discussion with him about that team. But wondering from you, who was a little bit of a younger player on that team at the time, it just such an unbelievable, seemed like a mix of vets and rookies, unbelievable mix of like toughness and skill. What was it like, being a part of that run there with the Anaheim Ducks? And what did you learn just as a young player that helped you to navigate the waters of the NHL, as a player?
Yeah, I don't think I knew what that team was until a couple of years after. There was and the importance of veteran players and their ability to produce offensively and play in pressure situations. Then the importance of young talent on a roster. So, you look at the way that team was set up. It was you had Teemu Selanne, Andy McDonald, and Chris Kunitz. That was the top line, and they scored. They were fast. Their job was to be fast and offensive. Then the second line was Ryan Getzlaff, Corey Perry, and Dustin Penner. And their job was to be like heavy, skilled, puck possession, and they were able to play that way. And then they had a third line, which is, I think if you ask a lot of people, I don't know if you asked Chris this, but the reason that team won a Stanley Cup, at least on the forward side of the ice, was because of Sammy Paulson, Rob Niedermeyer, and Travis Moen. They were the checking line that played more minutes than any of the top two lines. The third line played more minutes than the top two lines. And they were out there, and their job was just watch the other bench. As soon as the other team's best players come over, Sammy Paulson's leg goes over the bench, and he's going. And he took every face-off, like every D-zone face-off. They checked hard. They played with pride. They were physical. And then the role that I was in at the time, fourth line, all we had to do was run around and hit people and give the other guys a breather. So, our job was relatively easy. But then you look at the back end, too. You had J.S. Jaguar, who kind of changed the way goaltenders play. His blocking style, the equipment that he wore, the butterfly. And on the blue line, you have Scott Niedermeyer, who could play 30 minutes and who looked like Iron Man, who only had one little circle on his chest the size of a puck. He'd wear a gray undershirt. You guys ever hear these stories? He'd wear like a heather gray undershirt, and he'd play 30 minutes and then 5 minutes of OT. He'd come off the ice, and he would have like a puck-sized sweat mark in the middle of his chest. That's it. Like wouldn't break a sweat, and now he would skate like the wind. The guy
flying around.
Yeah,
he was amazing. But he'd play half the game, and then Chris Pronger would play half the game. So you always had like a legit number one D-man on the ice. And then to supplement those guys, you had different players, Francois Beauchemin or, O'Donnell, Joe DePenta, Kent Huskins. There's a bunch of different guys that kind of fit in there. But that team was probably as balanced and as diverse, but yet skilled and committed to any team. And Brian Burke has said this. He put the 07 Ducks up against any cup team, and he thinks they take them in 5 or 6 games. And I was a part of that, slightly biased, very small part of that. But I tend to agree that team was elite.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about playing for Brian Burke in his organization. And we had, I think you guys crossed paths in Anaheim, Mikey Brown on our podcast about a month ago. And he played for Berkey in 3 different spots, in Toronto and Vancouver and in Anaheim. Talk about like the culture. You talked about the players and the roles and things like that, but what was the culture like? The veteran leadership that you guys had, management, coaching, like all that kind of stuff. What was it like coming to the rink every day, especially as a younger player? Talk a little bit about just kind of the dynamics within the team and how you feel like that helped you guys to be a championship Stanley Cup program.
Yeah, well, when I came in, again, naive, and I don't think that was unique to me. I think a lot of players coming in don't fully know what it was like. And at that time, there were a lot of different rules that players would kind of follow. And, rookies would eat last. We wouldn't go on the elevator till everybody else was up. You'd sit on the bus till the vets got off. You weren't taking an airplane seat until everybody else was seating or sitting, So things were a little bit different. So you kind of walked around on eggshells a little bit. And I remember, some of the veteran guys, the mantra was speak when spoken to, just kind of do your job, go about your business. And but Brian Burke at the same time was very much about, and I've got a story because we were in the minor league affiliate was in Portland, and he likes this story. I don't remember it as well as he does, but you remember American League, you used to put your money in the cup and then you get your sandwich delivered after, and then you'd go to the bus and you'd eat it. And we were in Portland, road game, and it was raining outside. We had finished the game and sub was done. I'd showered, wasn't going to call people outside, jump on the bus. Brian Burke was on the bus. And it was my first year of pro hockey. So I get on the bus and Brian Burke was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I just got, I don't know. Like I panicked because I know this is a loaded question. So I'm like, well, yeah. And he goes, where's your hockey bag? And I was like, I don't know. There's equipment guys. I think they're going to put it on the bus. He's like, the equipment guys aren't going to put your bag under the bus. Like, what do you think you're doing? Like, who do you think you are? Like, get off the bus. You sit in the rain and you wait till all the equipment is under the bus. Then you get on the bus. So it was very much like, hey, you still haven't made it, buddy. Like, you get out there, you carry your gear, like, and it was like an eye opener. Like, whoa, turns out this really still isn't about like me or this or that. Like, you've got to do things differently. And I got a second story. So after I signed my first one-way contract in training camp, I'm scratched the last game of exhibition, and he calls me up during the game to his suite where he's watching the game, and he sits me next to him, and he goes, "You know why you're here?" And I was like, No, I'm not playing. And he goes, "You know what? I think you got a case of the fat cat syndrome." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "You got fat cat. You sign a one-way deal. You're comfortable. What'd you think about your camp?" And I was like, "I don't know. I thought it was fine." He goes, "I thought it was horse shit." And he basically was like, "Yeah, like you weren't physical. You didn't play hard. Like you signed a one-way deal. You think you made it." Like very much so. He was always like challenging you, like you've become complacent. And I'm calling you on it. So that culture, it was like for me at least, it was always like you're on edge. Like every day you're proving something. It's not like you've proved something. Now you can just go relax and have fun in Southern California and play hockey. It was no, every day you're proving something to me. So he was a great leader. A lot of great lines. He sets a culture maybe better than any general manager that I've been around. I'm grateful to have had the chance to play underneath him.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that about him, because like I've heard a lot of different stories about different things that he's done quietly for different people that have coached under him or players that have played under him and things like that. And he's able to coach you hard, if that's what you want to call it, coaching, because he cares. Like, that he cares about you, and what the grand plan is. And when you're putting a roster together, and it's funny, like this conversation is so, I think, valuable for all, like, I feel like everybody to hear right now, because like there's always a pendulum of like how kids want to be coached or whatever it may be. And there's this like feeling in the coaching world for a lot of people that it's like, oh, you can't be hard on kids nowadays. And like, all these kinds of things. But at the end of the day, like the best coaches, in my opinion, are the ones that are able to have the old school values, mentality, things like that. But also they supplement that with the relationship piece of it, because like you can't with kids today, like they want to know the why, and they are a little bit different, but that doesn't mean we can't be tough on them. That doesn't mean we can't hold them accountable. And I think that's a perfect example right there of something that you talked about, of like somebody being hard on you and being honest with you. Because as players, that's what we should want. Just, I want to know where I stand. Let me know what I need to do. Vex, even from your conversation that we had a little bit earlier, I want to know where I stand and what's going on. But like that can't come without the relationship piece too. And the more you invest in the relationship piece, the more that the player knows that you care about them, the harder that you can be on them and holding them accountable to the standards where they're going to actually buy into what you're doing and want to get better and change.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If you're going to ask a player to run through the wall for you, that player is going to need to like you, and you're going to have some type of relationship, right? So there's that. But you're absolutely right.
And even just, this goes down to the youngest ages too. I was covering at one of my gyms last night for one of my coaches who's out of town, and we had a 12U team, so 11-year-old boys. 11-year-old boys, they're running around like it's gym class mixed with athleticism, long-term athletic development. It's nothing like crazy structured. I want them to enjoy, training at this age and just getting the foundations down. And I asked him and I did this on purpose. And I asked him to do, just some walking lunges after we did some athleticism stuff. And I said, all right, and I literally on purpose, because I knew what would happen. I said, I want you to do walking lunges down to that wall. I said, where did I say to go? Down to the wall. Okay. So they go, and they're kids, so they're going through it and whatever. All of them stopped 7-10 feet before the wall, and they're having fun and they're messing around. And I go down there and I said, okay, now let me ask you guys, where did I tell you to do walking lunges to? They're goofing around. One of them's like, the wall. And then so I walk over to the wall and I'm like, come here. Is this the wall? No. Is this the wall? No. Is this the wall? No. And I'm like, this far, like an inch away. And I'm like, is this the wall? And one of them said yes. And I'm like, no. And then I went into a coaching spiel about why details are important, why coaches tell you to do this. It's because they've come up with practice plans to make you your best. And I said, how many of you, and I did exactly what we talked about earlier, how many of you, raise your hand, want to play junior hockey, college hockey, or maybe you even want to play in the NHL? And they're 11. I know they're all going to raise their hands. So they all put their hands up. And they're still in kind of a goofy kid mode. And I said, well, I'm a coach, and my job is to help you get to whatever your goals are. And I'm going to tell you right now, whether we're talking about getting better at hockey, or we're talking about getting better grades in school, or later in life when you're trying to make money at something else, it does not matter. But details are going to help you be your absolute best. And went into a life lesson covered in working out, covered in hockey. The rest of the workout, they did everything exactly how I asked them to. This is the first time I've worked with this team before, right? Just by asking those questions, holding them accountable, asking them, what are your goals? Them telling me, their coaches afterwards, when they went over to the shooting area, because that's the second half of the workout, were like, thank you so much for doing that. We're constantly trying to talk about life lessons. Can't believe you got them to buy in that fast. But it was doing like all these things we're talking about. They could tell from my speech how much I cared that they actually went all the way to the wall. They told me what their goals are, and then I asked them if their actions were aligning with it. So it's kind of everything we're talking about. But the reason I wanted to tell this story is because they were 11, right? They were 11, and I immediately got them to buy into it because they knew I cared. Mm-hmm. I went over what are their goals. So because we have so many coaches that listen to this, right? And so coaches, you can start this stuff at the youngest of ages, but it's everything we're talking about here. Like he's talking about, he knows that the coach and the GM cared about him, right? There was a plan. They asked him his goals. What do you want? You want to be an NHL player. You want to be here. And then it was up to him then to take that and run with it. So the youth coaches listening, this isn't something that you wait until they're 16. We want to start these things when they're young at, age appropriate lessons. Obviously what you do with a 6-year-old is not what you do with a 12-year-old or an 18-year-old, but let's get these things back in our game because it's going to make better players and better human beings.
And the other thing too, you're talking to the coaches now, I'll talk to the kids now. And I think we would all agree, if you have a coach that's hard, they're holding you accountable and they're pushing you and they're challenging you, that's a good thing. If they're getting under your skin a little bit, they're trying to get you outside your comfort zone, that is a good thing. You would rather have a coach that is harder on you and holding you accountable to standards than one that is going to let you do whatever you want, because the coaching, every level you go up, gets harder typically. And the standard gets higher every level you go up. And so I know, I talk to a lot of parents who tell me, oh, the coach, he's too hard on my kid. I'm like, and they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, it's good. They're like, well, what do you mean? No, they're getting pushed. And now, if it's verbal abuse and stuff like that, that's obviously a different story. But for the kids that are listening, man, if you have a coach that's holding you to a standard and is tough to play for at certain times, because every day you go to the rink, you're not going to always want to give your 100%. But if that coach is there to make sure that you get there, that's somebody that you want in your corner. That's somebody that's making you better. So if there's times where you don't necessarily like your coach for pushing you, you'll reflect back and be thankful for that person for holding you to that standard, because it's going to help you be the best that you can be. Yeah.
My opinion, growth and comfort are opposing magnets. They push each other apart. If you want growth, you have to be uncomfortable. So if somebody's putting you in an uncomfortable position, it's an opportunity to grow. If you're comfortable, you're on the couch, that's comfortable, man. You're not getting better. You're not developing. You're not improving. Now, if you're at the gym or at the rink and you're doing a superset or you're grinding when nobody else is that comfortable? No, that's not comfortable. But now, is that where development occurs? Yeah, it is. So there's a correlation between discomfort and development, and comfort and stagnation. And I think young players have to understand that too. So when you are challenged with something that's uncomfortable, you're right, Topher. You're in a really good spot. You're right where you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Wow.
Ew, clip that. Let's go. Seven kinds of smoke on the podcast today.
Most people don't realize how much of their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might just sell credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it together at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/secure. Protect yourself now at aura.com/secure.
I love it. Well, Ryan, I got one more question for you here. And, not many of us get the opportunity to live out the ultimate dream. Number one, to play in the NHL, but also to win a Stanley Cup and have that cup over your head. And so as a person, circling back to even the beginning of this, you get into hockey because you look out your back window in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, and you see your neighbors playing, and then going through everything that you've gone through, all the ups and the downs, and thinking about all the people that helped you along the way. Just to describe to us, if you even can put into words, what it was like to lift that Stanley Cup over your head for the Anaheim Ducks in 2007, thinking about that young kid that's 3 or 4 years old in White Bear Lake, Minnesota.
Yeah, I didn't understand it. It was my first year of professional hockey. Like, I had like conflicting feelings. Like, it was exciting, but I'd only played 2 years of college. I missed my college buddies. I'd played in the American League, like trying to figure out where you fit in. Next thing you know, you've won. And I didn't understand like what it meant or how hard it was to actually accomplish. And then playing further and having more opportunity to play playoff hockey, and then in the finals again, you start to realize, like, dude, this is rare. This is coveted. And what I learned in the very end is that I play hockey because I love it, and I enjoyed it. But the greatest part was like almost being in the driver's seat of a ride and being able to take the people that you care about with you on that ride, and to be able to provide opportunities for a family to go on vacations to Europe to watch hockey, to go to Stanley Cup final games, to go to, Stanley Cup parties, to have your buddies that you grew up with playing on the backdoor rink, being able to drink empty their bank account buying a bottle of Dom so that they could drink it out of the Stanley Cup when they were, 22 years old. Like, those are stories that it's like, that's actually what for me, what means the most. It's less I accomplished something. It's more I provided people opportunities that maybe they never would have had in life. So for that, I'm grateful. For that, I'm proud. Grateful for the chance to be able to play the game. And it's validated all the sacrifices that we have to make as players to be good at the game and to chase it.
Now you're making me emotional. Good Lord.
Dude, this guy is a walking clip factory. My God. No wonder you played as long as you did in the NHL, man. I mean, it's so apparent in just everything you've said this entire podcast. Really cool.
Yeah, man. It's and it's so true. I think about this a lot. I actually have 3 daughters too, so I'm riding that train like you are, and I think about just kind of like, you think about your why a lot more, and your scope. You're not in your bubble, because when we play, you're so singularly driven on that goal. If that's the goal to get there, like you're locked in, man, and you don't necessarily understand or appreciate the perspective of the periphery and the community and all that kind of stuff. And then you get older and you have kids and you're able to reflect on different things. And man, it's so true. It takes a village. It takes a village. And to hear you talk about the pride that you took in giving other people the opportunity to have some pretty life-changing experiences through your journey with you. Man, dude, that just like brings up so many different memories for me. Brings up honestly like so many different emotions of my career and some of the cool things that I've been able to do and share with my family in that, and knowing how much they sacrificed for me to get to where I got to in so many different ways. And so ultimately, isn't that what it's all about? It's all about relationships. It's all about connection. It's all about memories and sharing moments with people. And to hear you talk about that in the way that you did was really, really cool. Really cool, man.
Maybe the next podcast is it's an AI world, because now I'm concerned on how that affects hockey going forward. But when it comes down to the fact that we've just concluded it's about relationships and the people in the game, as smart as the game might get analytically, it still is about the people. So trust in the people you train, that you coach, and those other things, because I think that's going to become more and more and more important as this game evolves too. But I don't know. Appreciate you guys having me. This has been a lot of fun.
This went by very quick. It was a lot of fun to talk to you. I'm glad, don't have to chase you around the rink anymore like we did 25 years ago. But this was awesome. Congrats on a great career. We'd love, if you can, to stick around for another couple minutes. We'll ask you 10 questions that'll be housed in our Hockey Think Tank community. But this just was a great podcast, man. Really appreciate what you're doing, and looking forward to watching you and some of the broadcasts with the Minnesota Wild coming up here soon. Big time of year for the Wild. They got a chance. Let's go.
Yeah, the winning window is officially open. There's a lot of buzz around here. So you're right. Exciting times ahead. But hey, guys, appreciate you spending some time with me for sure. I'll stick around.
Appreciate it. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is built for the fastest game on ice. With player drops and live betting, every shift, every shot, every save gives you options to get in on the game with DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code THPN. That's code THPN to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states, void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer, copyright 2026, NHL, all rights reserved.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.